from a lot of different industry sectors that are all impacted and interested in these negotiations, and I'm really delighted that Jake Colvin, a good friend of WTO, has agreed to moderate this panel. Jake's been working with the NFTC and I think it's Global Innovation Forum to help lead a lot of the business delegations to Geneva for these negotiations that we were talking about in the first panel, and Jake kindly has agreed to moderate this panel. Turn it over to you now.
Thanks very much, Ken, and thank you to Ken and Diego for organizing this. Also wanted to recognize Elisabeth, who I think is on her way out the door, for her leadership in DC and Australia's leadership of the negotiations in Geneva. So, as Ken mentioned, the purpose of this panel is to talk about business priorities for the WTO eCommerce negotiation, specifically U.S. business priorities. I'm excited to be joined by such a diverse group of industry representatives, Katie, Adam, Jen, and Arun, who you'll hear from in a moment. I think it's been nice for me at NFTC to see such a broad interest from such a broad array of different business sectors from our membership. I mean, you would always think of search and social media and cloud services and logistics companies to be at the forefront of e-commerce and digital trade discussions. But I think, as you'll hear from in a moment, a number of other industries are interested both because they are technology enablers, but also because they use some of these digital technologies in order to operate their businesses on a global basis. I think for NFTC, this conversation at the WTO is a logical next step, having been through the TPP discussions and the USMCA, which we see as kind of the gold standard for the digital trade chapter, as well as customs and trade facilitation. I think internally, the conversation that we've had among our members has been about identifying how the WTO discussions can support this entire e-commerce ecosystem that exists that helps businesses do business internationally. And for us, that means supporting digital trade issues, services market access, transparency, and as well as physical issues, including trade facilitation and customs challenges. So I don't want to minimize the challenges that the countries will face as they negotiate. I mean, you're going to have challenges when you have countries as diverse as the United States, the EU, China, Laos, Nigeria, Benin in the same room. But I think it's important to sort of celebrate the fact that so many diverse countries are willing to sit down and have a serious conversation with the WTO and recognize the importance of digital trade and e-commerce to their economies and their businesses, big and small. So with that, wanted to turn to each of the panelists to contribute their perspective to the discussion, and wanted to start out with kind of a basic question. So what are your company's priorities with respect to digital trade and e-commerce? And if you want to comment, what do you hope the WTO can achieve in this space? And so I wanted to turn to Katie Hayes first, who's Director of Global Government and Corporate Affairs Division at Caterpillar.
Thanks, Jake, and thank you all for being here. This is an exciting issue and one where the U.S. is kind of a natural leader in this space. So when you think about the Caterpillar, you think about big engines and even bigger machines, and so you're probably wondering, why am I here on this panel? But for over 93 years, we have been making our products suit the needs of our customers around the globe. We currently have 186 dealers in 193 countries. So as you can imagine, they're facing different challenges in every part of the world, whether it's the soil, whether it's the fuels, and that sort of thing. So over those 94 years, actually now, our machines are more reliant, I'd say, on technology now than they are on fuels. And that digital piece has enabled us to make machines more efficient, more effective, safer, and more sustainable, regardless of where they're operating around the globe. And because of that, we need policies that will enable us to continue to support those services to serve our customers. More importantly, it also helps us having things like free flow of data across lines allows us to be able to analyze that data. We need to know if a machine operating in Siberia is operating the same way as a machine in the Sahara. And so for us to be able to collect that data on all of our machines around the world is vitally important for us to continue to find the next solutions to enable our customers to be even more effective. We live in a connected world, so folks are also used to, whether it's turning on your lights or turning down your thermostat at home, we're used to having the ability and those technologies in our daily lives, and our customers are no different. So they're looking to us for what are those next solutions. So whether it's an app on your phone that connects your entire fleet, whether it's some of the technologies now that inspect your machines automatically, and you can sense and predict downtime on your machine, and so you can go ahead and not have that, or whether it's as simple as a remote start app. If, again, thinking about Siberia, if you're that operator in a huge D11 tractor in Siberia you're getting into on a freezing morning, you love the idea that you can now have remote start to that Caterpillar machine. So we are looking to, I'd say the USMCA, a lot of the provisions in the digital chapter there are a great step in the right direction, and enabling that free flow of data, prohibiting localization of servers, which was mentioned by the last panel, and some of these things as great modernizations that we should take forward and that we would love to see part of the discussion at WTO. Thanks.
Thank you, Kate. So I wanted to turn now to Adam Hempel, who's Director of Global Government Affairs at Walmart.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity today. I enjoyed listening to the earlier panel, and I was really excited. I think they took away a few of my talking points about how digital is embedded into every part of the business, but I'm gonna push through anyway. I think that what I'm happy to see is this discussion of digital trade, digital economy, in addition to e-commerce, because for us, it's been a bit of a challenge. We felt like that there's these silos that had been created. There's in the context of retail, there's the friendly neighborhood Walmart store on one side, and then there's e-commerce, there's Walmart.com, and that these are two distinct things. And that frustrated us because we know that's not how our shoppers want to shop. And so we've been investing a lot of resources about how do we bring the digital and physical together to really offer these enhanced services for customers. And I think that sort of defines our approach to these issues and gives us a unique perspective on these things. What we're looking for when we see these policy discussions come up, and I realize this is a bit simple to start, but I'm going to say it anyway just to get us going, is that we're looking for policymakers to agree on smart rules that are really going to unlock the digital economy in new ways. And I want to give a few examples of the why from a Walmart perspective, because digital innovation has ushered in, it maybe started with e-commerce, but a lot of these requirements or these expectations by customers that they want wherever they shop. And so we need to be bringing those in order to stay competitive and to offer like the integrated services that they want. And so that's why we think this is important. When you think of Walmart, probably at this point, you think about the 5,000 stores in the US. If you thought about it a little bit further, I would expect about our headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas, and maybe you would expect that there's offices in California that manage Walmart.com. But you might not realize that we have an innovation hub in Plano, Texas, or in Austin, we've got an office that's focusing on cloud insights from the stores where they can bring that back and drive efficiencies that they can push out to make the stores even more effective. We've got a Jet.com office in Hoboken, and they have a processing office in, I guess we have a data office in Bangalore, and Jet.com has a processing office in Ireland. And I find the Ireland one really interesting and really valuable to this discussion because Jet.com is not shoppable in Ireland. Yet they have an office here that's processing, I've got the notes here, on the order of 250 million price updates a day, 4.5 million cart calculations, and 3,000 searches a second. And it's based in Ireland where we don't have customers. Now there's a lot of reasons why Walmart might decide to put an office in a certain location, but we're a pretty cost-efficient company, and I would expect that they're looking for the best service at the best cost. And so with all of these offices that I've listed, they've had the flexibility to make the decision of where they should place. And I think that's the notion that we're trying to protect here when we think about sort of the future of digital, is how can we keep up these options that really add enhanced innovations, not just for us, but for all of the retailers, wherever they are on the sort of digital to e-commerce scale. We have one other point I wanted to note is we have an innovation retail hub, or intelligent retail hub that we just opened up. It's a sort of a store insight in New York, and they're pulling together data about what's on the shelf, inventory, freshness of products, so on and so forth. I learned that this hub produces 1.6 terabytes of data a second. So they gave me an interpretation of that. That's 3 years of continuously playing music. And so this is a lot of data. If we're going to be talking about movement of data, it's happening fast, and there's a lot of it going on, and it's really energizing the future of commerce, digital and physical. As we've learned a lot as we moved from the store to the website, and then integrating the store and the website. And I think that what we have found, like everyone else, that there's ambiguity in the rules of the road, when you move into sort of the digital space. And that we get that that's disconcerting for policymakers and for customers. And we get it because we've grown up in an environment where we have sort of built structures around responsible sourcing and product safety and environmental stewardship. And we're bringing those with us as we move into this digital environment because we want to do what's right for the customer, but we have to understand that if it's challenging for us to navigate, that it's probably challenging for businesses large and small. And so being able to build out a framework that really nourishes and enables this sort of integration is going to be really important. I would say that if we wanted to try to narrow it down with what we're looking for, I mean, that broad topic is important to us, but I would say, what we're looking for is consensus. We'd love to see consensus on the movement of data, as already elaborated, the data that's moving around. And so consensus on and consistency about how that would work so we can adjust our business to it. We definitely want an open trading system, just as in previous trade agreements, where we can have access to the services that we need and really choose what can provide the optimal retail experience for the customer and enhance that consumer trust. And then I would say non-discrimination for services, regardless of business model. This is interesting, it seems foundational, but what we're hoping to avoid here is, I talked a little bit at the beginning between sort of there was the store and then there's e-commerce. What we don't want to see is sort of an unintentional fragmentation of the two, and really what we want to be doing for a customer is to bring those two pieces together in a really coherent way. And so I think it's important for countries to think about how we can be an enabler for that process. And then I would say one thing that policymakers should be thinking about too in this vein of digital and physical is really what is the impact that all of this digital has had on the movement of goods. And so how is technology and data changing? If you think about sort of data, given that data is an integral part of everything, it's also integral in sort of trade facilitation, ensuring sort of trust and security. So I think it would be an interesting exercise for our policymakers to think through sort of what is it that we might need to push this along and keep goods flowing and serving the customer. And then just as a general matter, just figure about the blending of digital and physical. So that's a little bit how we're approaching it.
Thank you, Adam. I wanted to turn next to Jennifer Sanford, who's Director of International Trade and Energy Policy at Cisco Systems, and I think just back in Geneva, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for including Cisco on the panel. And I guess, we're more of a traditional technology company on this panel, but it's so exciting to be joined by many of our customers. And we're so excited for their digital journey, and we're excited to support their goals in these negotiations. Not only do we have our own goals for our company, we very much support the goals of our customers. I agree very much that we need to look at the negotiations in a holistic sense, in the sense that that technology providers, be they retail companies or agricultural concerns or banks, many of you're technology companies now. And I think that you need an infrastructure to support the business that you promote, right? So that's where Cisco comes in. We actually make routing and switching devices. We make servers. We make security devices, wireless products, and collaboration equipment, things like WebEx. I thought what might be useful, Jake, is to quickly provide some data about the growth in internet traffic, to really talk about what's at stake here. Because, we had talked, the previous panel had talked about needing to really quantify what's going on. And I think that this will shine some light on just one piece of that. It doesn't get into welfare gains and things like that, but just sort of what's happening. So for example, annual global IP traffic, IP is Internet Protocol traffic, so that's both on the internet and on private networks, will reach 4.8 zettabytes per year by 2022. That's a threefold increase in 5 years, from 2017 to 2022. It's huge. You talk about just the data that you're moving in your company. It's bearing, across the globe. The number of devices connected to IP networks will be more than 3 times the global population by 2022. And that will be driven in large part by machine to machine. So think Internet of Things and your back office operations and things like that. And 60% of the population will be using the internet by 2022, and that will be up from 45% in 2017. So we're gonna really bring so many more people around the globe onto the internet. And I should say these statistics are from Cisco's Virtual Networking Index that we released earlier this year. It's available on our website, cisco.com. So feel free to peruse. I think that for us, you know, the panel had talked earlier about what could really thwart what's happening in this growth area. And one of the things that could really slow things down are the cybersecurity incidents that we're seeing across the globe. And so for Cisco, we're actually paying significant attention to the provisions on cyber in the U.S. proposal in particular, because we really would like to see much more cooperation amongst countries and companies on things like incident response, on risk-based approaches to cybersecurity management. And I can go into more detail, but that's important, as well as I'm very interested to see what will happen on the goods side. USTR has created an Annex X in their proposal to keep a placeholder for market access commitments and services, as well as potentially requiring governments to join the Information Technology Agreement, the ITA and its expansion, which I think, again, would also promote sort of the technological ecosystem that's required to realize these kinds of numbers.
I think that's really important as countries like India ignore their ITA commitments and throw cold water on these e-commerce negotiations that show that a group of like-minded countries can come together and that making these commitments are in their interests, development interests. So finally, I wanted to ask Arun Venkataraman to speak, who's Visa's new Senior Director for Head of International Affairs. So welcome back to DC. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks, Jake. Great to be back. So I want to begin by just picking up on something Jen said in terms of companies that have come to the technology space. And with all due respect to my good friend Jen, Visa has been in the technology space since the get-go. And I say that with actually no tongue-in-cheek in the sense that Visa has been working in the payment space and has been using ones and zeros since before anyone in this room was born. Most anyone. And I think that's important because we've been in the technology space, but technology itself has changed. So what we used in 1959 is obviously quite different from what we're using today, but it was technology back then. And we have continuously evolved as the technology ecosystem has evolved. And we have been working with businesses and consumers to really empower them financially. We've been in the business of financial inclusion from day one and continue to be in the business of financial inclusion. So from our perspective, it's critical that any system that is created by a new WTO agreement really facilitate the type of competitive environment that actually allows for financial inclusion and inclusive economic growth. Those are key features for us that are good for business and good for our customers and good for the markets where we work. So I think it's important to remember that. I think when we look at building that competitive market, what does that mean and what does that take? And I think this is an area where change is happening so fast. And I apologize for the truism, but it is. And that, I think, is what we need to keep in mind as one of the distinctions between this negotiation and the negotiations we've had previously in the WTO, where, of course, the environment was always changing. But here, the very products and services that are the subject of negotiation are themselves changing as our customers' needs, wants, and desires are changing, and as government environments and policy frameworks are changing. And so we need to think about an agreement that will not only work for the next few years, but really will work for a long time. Because we know, as we know with the WTO and with trade agreements in general, they're only as good as the next round of trade negotiations. And now we don't know when that's going to be. And so I think we need to think about this agreement as a living agreement. How do we make it last? And one way to make it last is to ensure that it isn't too prescriptive, that it is prescriptive in a precision-like manner in those areas where we need to maintain openness, where we need to maintain flexibilities, and then it's not prescriptive in areas that might impede future innovation. And so for us, we look at areas like market access and national treatment, which, in our view, in order for financial inclusion to actually happen, you have to have that competitive environment. So you need more competitors, not less. So you need to ensure you have market access and national treatment obligations that really facilitate that. And of course, we need data flows. And why is data is important for us, as I mentioned, commercially, certainly. But even more than that, data is essential for our ability to provide the top level of security that our customers expect of us. Without access to the data from around the world, from the over 200 markets in which we serve, we can't guarantee the level of security and protection of data that is increasingly expected of us and that we ourselves expect. We'll also say we want to support an environment that encourages e-commerce, so we certainly support provisions that facilitate authentication and e-signatures. Very supportive of those. And it wouldn't be a trade event if I didn't mention standards. I think standards is one of those areas where we need to really ensure that commercial entities have the space to negotiate those deals or work together within industries to set the right standards that facilitate innovation. The idea of selecting a particular technology or allowing governments to mandate certain approaches or technological elements is only going to hurt local economies and hurt the global economy and hurt business as well. So those are the kinds of things